My name is Mr. MegaManFan, and I am not what you would call an influencer. I did not get an analog pocket ahead of time. I'm not mad about that because I still managed to get a pre-order and I got notification that it was shipping this week. So when those review embargoes lifted and every big YouTube channel put up their review of the pocket, I was like, that's okay. I don't have fear of missing out. I know I've still got one coming. And if you weren't part of that first batch of pre-orders and you have to wait for fulfillment in 2022 or 2023, I'm sorry. I know that sucks. Global parts shortages suck, and trying to get things that are scarce in quantity sucks. But analog products, even though they can take a while to get and can be hard to get, they are worth it when you get them. I have never had one that I didn't like, and I suspect I will like the Analog Pocket as well. But just to reiterate, I'm not an influencer. I did not get this in the mail from Analogue. I paid for everything you see in this video myself, so if I hate it, I'm going to say so, and if I like it, I'm going to say so. These opinions are entirely my own, with no editorial oversight from Analogue in any way. Now, one thing I have noticed from people who've done their own Analog Pocket reviews on their channels is some people are having issues with the dock. It doesn't seem to want to sync up with their Analog Pocket. So to that end, before I use my dock, I will update the firmware on the Pocket and on the dock. Both have had firmware releases in the last few days since the units started shipping out, and they're very easy to find. Go to any search engine you like, DuckDuckGo, Google, etc., and type in Analog Pocket Firmware Update. It will take you directly to Analog's website where you can download said updates. They are really easy to install. For the Pocket, you put it in the root directory of a clean micro SD card. I formatted one fresh for the purpose. It might work even if you don't. I'm not saying you have to, but that's what they recommend. So I went ahead and used one that was completely blank except for the firmware update. And I put the file in the update in the root directory. Then you put the micro SD card in the slot on the right hand side of your Pocket. Make sure it's not on. If you were using it before you did the update, power it down completely. You do that by holding the button for several seconds to turn it on or turn it off. So don't have a game in there, don't have it turned on, make sure it's completely off, put the micro SD card in there, and then power it on. It'll show you that it's updating, it'll put a progress bar on the screen, and then it will automatically reboot itself when it's done. The dock does not automatically reboot itself, but here's a pro tip. If you want to make sure that it is updating, plug in the HDMI cord first and hook it up to your TV and turn the TV on. Make sure you've got the correct input selected. Then use a USB-A thumb drive. You've got 100 of them around, I'm sure. My wife had one that she got free from a bank as a giveaway. So I put the update from Analog's website for the dock on that thumb drive because there were no other files on it, but format it if you want to be safe. FAT32 in both cases, if I didn't already say that. So, once you put the thumb drive into either the USB port on the left or the right side of the dock, plug in the power. And if you've already got it hooked up via HDMI to your TV, you will see a status update bar on the screen with your TV turned on, just like you will see on the screen of the Analog Pocket when you do that update. And it'll power itself down once the update is complete. Then when you dock it, everything will be golden. But you'll see that soon enough in my video. So as you can see, here's everything that came with the dock, and now I will unbox the Analog Pocket. I know some people were complaining that the Pocket does not come with a charge brick, but if you bought the dock, you got a charge brick and an HDMI cord and a USB-C cord, which is kind of ironic because the Pocket itself also comes with a USB-C cord and no brick. But if you have the dock, then that's not going to be a problem. And even if you don't have the dock, surely you have a power brick for a cell phone that you can plug it into to charge. And if not, then you can plug it into a MacBook, because those have USB-C these days. And if not, just buy a power brick. I mean, it's the least of my concerns at this point. I'm sure you can figure something out. But for me, the fact that the Pocket didn't come with a power brick was not a gripe since the dock came with one of its own. I gotta say, there's some good heft to the weight of both the Pocket and the dock, so either they used really solid components or they added extra weight to it to make it feel more premium, which I'm not complaining about in either case, because when you spend $200 for a handheld, you probably want it to feel premium, right? I know I do, and it does have that feel. Everything about this has that feel though. The box itself, the little envelope inside with the quick start guide, the whole presentation has a really impressive product quality. The kind of thing that you would expect from a major brand like Nintendo or Sony is present in Analogue. Nothing about what they do seems or feels cheap. Even the cords that they bundle in with these systems have the Analogue logo on them, which is probably unnecessary, but it's a nice touch. As you can see, the one for the Pocket is exactly the same one as the one that comes with the dock. They both have the same cord length and they both have the same logos on each end, and they're both USB-C. So, like I said, if you don't have the dock, just find something you can plug this USB-C into to charge your Pocket. You'll know that it's charging by the little LED light on the bottom side next to the right of the plug. It comes with a little bit of charge to begin with, but not a full charge, and that's typical for these products when they ship out. They don't send them fully charged. You charge them up all the way once you get them. So next step here is to remove this screen protector film. I did order the official tempered glass screen protector when they opened the newest round of pre-orders, so I don't know when that'll ship, but I'm willing to use it in the meantime without one because they call this screen Gorilla Glass. It's supposed to be really high quality stuff, hard to break, hard to scratch. I want to put a protector on it eventually, but I'm not freaking out that I don't have one in the meantime. The same goes for the plastic protective hard case that they sell. I ordered one of those. Don't have it yet, but I will use it once I do. And the Game Gear adapter is the last thing I got during the latest round of pre-orders. So if those don't ship until the new Pockets ship, then I'm in the same boat as the rest of you when it comes to getting all of my accessories. This is what you'll see when you boot it up for the first time, which I did just to make sure it was working before I installed the firmware. I mean, spent $200 on this thing, right? You might as well at least turn it on and make sure it works. But I didn't dock it until I updated the firmware on both. Yes, there is an end user license agreement. Yes, it is really long. And yes, I agreed to it without really reading it in full. I suppose I can go back and watch this video in slow motion to see every little bit of that text, but I was, needless to say, anxious to actually try this thing out. It's a quick test with The Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening just to make sure everything is hunky-dory here. Now, I do understand what people have said about the Pocket when they say that the cartridge slot is rather open. There's nothing holding it in place like there is on an original Game Boy, but I'm not too worried about that issue either. I don't think I'll accidentally nudge the cartridge while I'm playing. I've heard some people say it can happen. It doesn't feel like it's loose in there, but I mean, if you throw this thing around, it's probably going to malfunction whether or not the cartridge slips. So just treat it with the same care and respect you would any other premium or handheld device that you have. It's one thing that the original DMG Game Boy taught me when I was very little, because I used to have a tendency to throw my joystick when I would get frustrated. And once I had a Game Boy and realized that was not really replaceable, when I would get frustrated and I'd feel that temptation to throw a joystick, I'd be like, no, if this thing breaks, it's my own fault. And I would control my frustration. So, yeah, I learned a good lesson from having a Game Boy as a kid. Incidentally, I don't know why I used the word little, because I would have been a teenager when the Game Boy came out, but that's what happens when you get old. Time gets compressed and things seem farther away than they actually were. So let's just get a quick look at all of the options that come with the Pocket. I like Analogue's own palette here. I think Analogue GB looks really nice, but if that's not your bag, you can always switch it to DMG when you're running in Game Boy mode, and that'll give you the pea soup green, as they call it. Or if you had a Pocket and you didn't have the original DMG, you can replicate that color palette. If you have the light, if you grew up with a light because you lived in Japan, or you imported one like I did, you can recreate that glowing blue screen. And just for shits and giggles, I guess, there's one called Pinball Neon Matrix. Some people say that that looks like Virtual Boy. I suppose it does. I never had a Virtual Boy, but from the videos I've seen of a Virtual Boy, it definitely had that red on black look when you look through the lenses on either side. Now, if somebody could make a Virtual Boy core for the Analogue Pocket that would display those games on TV, I realize it wouldn't be the stereoscopic 3D, but it would be a nice way to play those games. And I have seen some people make Virtual Boy handhelds that are really clever and creative, but I wouldn't be able to cannibalize a Virtual Boy and do that myself. And I wouldn't want to anyway, because I know how hard to find and expensive they've become. You can shrink your picture all the way down to a size of, I don't know, a postage stamp if you really want to. But I would recommend leaving it in the full width and height when you're playing Game Boy games, which, as you can see, is 1600 by 1440, which is a 10:1 scale over the original Game Boy's 160 to 144 screen. And that is very much on purpose on Analogue's part, because they can display each individual pixel and recreate the original authentic Game Boy look down to pixel by pixel accuracy, just scaled up 10 times over. But if that's too big for you, then switch it to a smaller size. Get whatever scale you like. Now, when I clicked on the button to sync my Switch Pro controller, it found the dock immediately. I know that was professed to be one of the features of the dock, but it was still rather impressive to me when I hit the sync button and it just found it and it just worked. For the longest time, people have complained that the Game Boy player is difficult to find with the disc and useless without it unless you have customized your GameCube and done, I guess I would call it a jailbreak, but essentially you use a micro SD card in the memory card adapter and you have a Legend of Zelda save file that causes the GameCube to boot to the memory card. It's a hack. It's a workaround. And then you can use the Game Boy player without the GameCube's boot up disc. But how many people are going to go to that much trouble? They're either going to buy a Game Boy player with a disc, or they're probably not going to buy a Game Boy player at all. And that has actually become prohibitively expensive. Probably at this point, more so for the Game Boy player disc than actually buying an Analogue Pocket and a dock. I haven't checked the prices lately, but at one point they were pretty bad. Now, when you dock the Pocket, there will be some options that you have and some options that you don't. Like, you can't go and switch the handheld mode displays. You can't do like DMG and Pocket and Light, but you can still change it to the built-in color palettes that are there. You can select any of those. You can change how zoomed in the picture is. You can change whether or not you force it into original Game Boy mode or let it run on a Game Boy Color, which will cause it to have the color palettes that the Game Boy Color recognized by default when original Game Boy games were inserted. Or if they're color games, they will of course have their full Game Boy Color palette. And it should be noted that there is a core for each one of these things on the Pocket that emulates that hardware. And that's why field programmable gate arrays, or FPGA, are really important when you do this kind of thing, because it's not software emulation, it's the actual hardware recreating the circuitry in these original handhelds on a one-to-one basis. That's not 100% compatibility, which I know is sometimes used as a brag for FPGA, like it's archive quality, they say. Well, that's bullshit. We all know there's going to be edge cases where something doesn't work in FPGA. But the nice thing about Analogue is that Kevtris is really committed to making these cores as close to 100% as he can. He is constantly working on things, testing out edge cases, trying to iron out the kinks in any core that he makes for any Analogue product. So if you're concerned about accuracy or quality, you're in good hands with Analogue, because it's going to be way higher than it will ever be with a software product. No offense to Hyperkin and their whatever they called their box that they plug into the TV and put Game Boy games and Game Boy Advance games in, but that was not accurate. Even at the beginning and even after firmware updates, it was way off. So far with this, it's way right. I have yet to find the edge case that didn't work correctly, whereas with that Hyperkin Game Boy Player thing, there was no edge cases. It was just regular games not working the way they were supposed to. I'm trying out some weird stuff here on my EverDrive GBA X5 just to see if the Pocket can handle it, and I am not encountering issues. The Sega Master System emulator that you can put on a GBA EverDrive, that obviously worked just fine because I was playing Fantasy Zone, so we know that works. And we've got NES games on here which are not going to be super accurate when they're emulated through a Game Boy Advance, because the pixel ratios are not the same, the sound engine is not the same, so this is not comparable to playing actual NES games on an Analog NT Mini Noir. But if you wanted to play NES games on a Game Boy, you probably wouldn't be playing them through the dock on an Analog Pocket anyway. It's kind of a kludge. It's just there because it can be done, not even necessarily because it should be done. I feel like the Sega Master System version of emulator on Game Boy Advance is far better than the NES one, but your mileage may vary. Now here's something fun that a Game Boy player can't do that an Analog Pocket through a dock can do: Game Boy Advance video. I haven't seen anybody else test this yet. I'm not saying I'm the first, but if they have, I haven't seen a video showing it. And yes, not compatible with Game Boy Player, but with an Analog Pocket and a dock, it sure is. So get those Game Boy Advance video carts out and put them in your pocket, and you can actually watch them on a big screen TV. The Game Boy Player never let you do that. Never, ever, ever. It was not allowed. So I would say edge case is confirmed for me, or in other words, Analog Pocket does what Nintendo don't. I'm going to try some of the Game Boy Advance and Game Boy accessories that I have later on, but I think for my first day with the Pocket, this is a pretty good overview of the things it can do. It can run original Game Boy games, it can run Game Boy Color games, it can run Game Boy Advance games, it can run EverDrives, it can run Game Boy Advance video carts. It can do anything. I am not disappointed with this product. It feels really nice in the hand when you play it in handheld mode. It works perfectly when you dock it in docked mode. And it's just like the Nintendo Switch. When you take it out of the dock, it transfers to the screen. When you put it in the dock, it transfers to the TV. They clearly knew what they were doing when they engineered this product, and I commend them for that. But I will say, in conclusion of this non-sponsored, self-funded review, that it wasn't cheap. It's $200 for a Pocket and $100 for a dock. Actually, let me correct that. It's $220 now, because the latest round of pre-orders, the price went up $20 due to the part shortage and the global situation. So it's not cheap. Getting an original Game Boy is going to be cheaper, but once you start modding it with backlight kits and IPS screens, it might end up costing the same or more as a Pocket and wouldn't be able to do all the things that a Pocket can do. And one of the things this dock can do is go to sleep and wake up with the power button on your Switch Pro controller. I didn't even realize that would work. I just tried it to see if it would work like the Switch, and it did. I'm impressed. I feel like my money was well spent.